Hi, boys and girls. Happy Monday. I want you to come on over and look at my computer screen because this week we're going to be reading two stories and we're going to be comparing and contrasting. Now, remember, boys and girls, when we compare two stories, we tell how two stories are the same. So, compare ends in an E and same ends in an E. When we want to contrast two stories, contrast ends in a T and different ends in a T. So when you read these two stories, you really want to pay attention to how the two stories are the same and how the two stories are different. Come on over. On Monday, you're going to listen to the two stories on video. Miss Silverstein has created a video where she reads the story to you. And then you're going to click here for your questions. When you go to the questions, boys and girls, because there are two texts, it is very important that you look for text evidence. So the first passage is called The Magic Words. And the second passage is Magic Cleo, The Magic Spell. You'll have to repeatedly read these stories throughout the week. But don't forget, boys and girls, the more we read the same stories, the better we get as readers. It makes us become more fluent. So reading a text over and over again is a good thing to help us become better readers. When you scroll down to the first question here, check all the following that are characters in the story: Cleo, Mr. Johnson, Lewis, Todd, Sarah. So you have to go up to your stories, and you don't just want to reread the first sentence. You really want to go through and say, oh, I see Cleo, I see Lewis, I see Todd, I see Grandpa, and that's all in the beginning. But who else is in there? So just make sure that you're clearly going to both passages and finding who your characters are. Question number 3. How are the settings different in each story? Now remember, a setting is where the story takes place. So when you go up to the first story, they're going to be talking about Cleo, Lewis, and Todd looking up in an oak tree and how the kite is stuck in the high branches. So continue reading to say, well, where does that story take place? When you scroll down to the second story, it says, every time Mr. Gonzalez handed back her spelling test, and it starts talking about a spelling test. It also talks in this sentence, Cleo's table was so popular at lunch, the cafeteria monitor came over. So think to yourself, well, where do you have lunch in a cafeteria? So continue reading to figure out where the setting takes place. Question number 4. In the magic words, what is the problem at the beginning of the story? Now pay attention that you're going back and referring to the correct story in the magic words. So if you go up, this story is the magic spell. This story is the magic words. So you're looking for that problem. Cleo, Lewis, and Todd looked up in the oak tree. There was Todd's kite stuck in the high branches. So make sure that you definitely go back and forth to each story before you just select an answer. Now, you will be using these stories again when you go to your yellow boxes. There are more questions on Tuesday. Then when you go to Wednesday and you click here, there will be more questions on that story. And I'm going to hop over to Thursday. And I want to just go over a few things for the story on Thursday. And again, boys and girls, I want to reiterate that every day you should be rereading these stories to become a better, more fluent reader. Now, when you scroll down, You'll reread this passage, and then you will reread this passage. You can even time yourself to see if each day you're becoming a little bit faster with your reading. What does Cleo tell Lewis to do before the next spelling test? So now you have to say to yourself, well, which passage talks about the test? Was it the first passage, the magic words, or was it the second passage? And you'll see that the spelling test refers to the magic spell text. And the question wants to know what Cleo tells Lewis. She gives him some really good advice down here on the bottom. I can help you cast the magic spell, Cleo offered Lewis on the night before. So when you go to answer that question, you want to refer to when Cleo gave Lewis advice. Question 2. Why do you think Cleo got A's on her spelling test? Because she has magical powers. Because she studied each day for 30 minutes on her test. Because she studied the words by writing them down and spelling them out loud to her dad. Because she said, A, amazing, give me an A, while taking her test. Now, boys and girls, don't just guess. Find that evidence. What do you think she did to get those A's? So that's the second text up here, the magic spell. And you're going to find a lot of good information in here about how she wrote her words down on her paper and she wrote them multiple times. You're definitely going to want to refer back to this part of the text of how she actually gets an A on the test. How are Todd and Lewis different from one another in both stories? So, boys and girls, if you go back to this story, I love this line right here. Wow, said Lewis, did you see that? It just kind of jumped out of the tree. Cleo's magic words worked. So it looks like Lewis really believes that her magic words are working. But Todd says, it was the wind, Todd began. So, boys and girls, let's take a look at that. It looks like Lewis is surprised there when he says, wow, and Lewis believes Cleo's magic, whereas Todd is really not believing. He thinks it's just the wind, okay? So when you look at that, you also can refer to the next story, the magic spell, where Todd in that story also does not believe that it's magic. So when you go to question number 4, this is an open-ended question where you will type in your answer. After reading both stories, are your feelings about Magic Cleo more like Todd or more like Lewis? So are you going to be more like Todd, where you really don't believe? And if you choose Todd and you really don't believe in the magic, you have to support it with a good reason. You can't just say, my feelings are more like Todd. I really want to know why your feelings are like Todd. Maybe push yourself to type a couple sentences there. If you, after reading both stories, feel more like Lewis, you're more of a believer and you're surprised, tell me why. So this is an open-ended where I am expecting more of like 2 sentences typed of which person you would choose. So boys and girls, just make sure that you're reading these texts repeatedly every day and closely reading them and going back and forth as you answer the questions. Make sure not to guess. Find the text evidence. You know, that's a big thing that we use in the classroom, text evidence. Well, boys and girls, enjoy your week, and I hope it's a great week. See you later. I miss you.